Dre, where we talk about everything to getting resourced back into alignment and contact with yourself, source, and others. And we talk about everything from relationships, triggered trauma to ourselves and our relationships. Dre does a much better job, I think, of introducing what we talk about every day, but I've given it my best shot today. He's got the radio voice. Today, we're talking about anniversaries and busyness and how anniversaries can catch us off guard and we don't realize we're having an experience of one. It is my 54th birthday, actually, this Sunday. So it is an anniversary for myself. And going to talk about how time flies when we're busy and what it takes to time to slow us down and connect to how we want to show up in our lives, in our world, and with others. So we can start us off today with Dre. What's alive in you? What's present for you in this moment? In lovely Victoria is where we're streaming from today.
Yeah, yeah. There's still a feeling of agitation there. Um, mm, yeah, the energy around my chest area. Yeah, I've been moving through some energy. It's been heavy, intense to get through the distortions. And also, there's a feeling of excitement. Uh, just being Victoria with our friends, just being in a new environment and relating and connecting. So for that, I am thankful. And that's brought some ease to my sense of being when I bring my attention to that. You know, that I'm in. And what's alive in you, Summer?
Making sure my camera's as clear as possible. What's alive in me? Looking in the background, the rich lushness of the outside, the smell of the rain as we got here, um, a sense of curiosity and openness to life. Um, I was extremely frustrated yesterday, and that's just shifted completely. So I would say I'm mostly grateful and curious right now. Yeah. As always, looking forward to where our conversations lead us because it surprises me every single time.
Yeah, it's never pre-scripted. We have a
No.
topic and we just jam to what flows through in this moment, right? Speaking to the moment.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. In the moment, someone mentioned our theme for June is the busyness of the month and talking about anniversaries. So what's present for Summer is her upcoming birthday here, officially on Sunday.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to ask you, because that's coming, like what's being present in your field, what's coming alive for you. There's this idea that really false truth for me, Summer, is that there's anniversaries, meaning like things that happen during Christmas or certain times of the year. If I go through the cycle of approaching that same moment again, it's as if I'm being reminded of the same energies, the thoughts, the memories that come up again. It's as if like it's a rehash of what I experienced before if it hasn't been resolved,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I don't have much science on this. I'm reading The Body Keeps the Score, and trauma uh, experiences tend to like create flashbacks or PTSD in certain situations. And I'm looking into the science of that, though there's an inherent truth that of my knowing that I believe this to be true. I believe this to be true. For example, if I went through a serious breakup on Valentine's Day, then the next time Valentine's Day were to come up, it would remind me of that situation again, viscerally, how it felt. Right? So I wanted to bring this to you of like, yeah, what's coming alive within your system as your birthday approaches.
Hmm. My most recent birthdays, I don't believe there's been trauma associated with them. What I remember is just gathering of friends. The one that stands out for me is in 2020, actually. It was a beautiful gathering. Um, and it might strike me, and this is the thing, I think it might strike me on the day or after too, um, as well. That's an interesting question you're asking me, and I'm like cut off guard. Oh, I didn't expect you to ask that question. The other thing I'm noticing that is completely off topic is that I kind of like being able to see you face to face when I talk to you in the other format that we have. We're not able to do that. We sit beside each other, um, and I like seeing our faces, which is interesting. Um, but anniversaries, yeah, we usually talk about them in terms of yearly cycles and trauma. And I have so many clients that sometimes they're like, I don't know why I feel like this. And then they track it back. Oh, yeah, my dad died this week 5 years ago. Or, oh, this happened to me. And when you talk about the book, The Body Keeps the Score, it's true. And it keeps the score in a timeline, in a way of how cycles happen in relationship to weather changes and information in the outside world that we're not necessarily cognizant of. It's really fascinating how intelligent our body is in terms of asking us to revisit those parts of ourselves we've kind of forgotten or tucked away that needs to be brought back online, I guess. And a lot of us often are so busy, besides, giving a card, happy anniversary, honey, or thinking about something, there's not a lot of ways in our culture that we honor different kinds of anniversaries that allow us to clear the energetic charge of it or the trauma of it.
Hmm.
Then we just then end up being continually re-traumatized because we don't know how to process it in the first place. So this brings it now. What I recognized yesterday as I was thinking, I'm working out and I'm thinking, because I was so frustrated yesterday, I was like, I don't feel regulated in my body. I feel so triggered for hours. And it occurred to me then, I tracked back, what does this remind me of, this feeling in my body? And I remember being maybe 8, 9, 10 years old and thinking to myself, you know what? I think I lived like this most of my life. Dysregulated, out of my body, unable to relate to people. And I thought to myself, I wonder how most people feel as they go about their days. And what's that bringing up for me right now too is that we know, and I've spoke to another one of my clients today, and several people, that there's been some suicides and different people that are really struggling right now. And I got an idea of what that feels like to be so disconnected from myself, but just go through the motions of the day. And thinking, oh man, if I can't get myself regulated again, and honestly, it's really, I think, only being in a relationship to you that I feel a consistent sense of nervous system regulation. Honestly, I don't think
Dysregulation.
regulation.
I was like, oh shit,
Yeah.
call me out here. What?
No, no, no,
I didn't
no,
know I have that impact on you. Whoops.
no, it's with you that I have felt regulated most of the time. and I can get myself back really quickly. And so I think this idea of we're either all really co-dysregulating each other or co-regulating each other, and learning how to do that, so when these anniversaries do come up, that others can reflect back to us who we are or who we can be. And so part of this
Mm.
birthday actually is celebrating that I get to celebrate it with you, honestly.
Yay. And like, write a new story,
Yeah.
I can find like that activation, that charge when it's so heavy, it's like it truly reverts back to a time and period in the past that I've experienced in my body that I haven't yet resolved. And that the situation that's causing the trigger is really revealing it for me to resolve, to work through it. Especially when I have a huge charge, right? Like, hey, where was this feeling similar back in the past? Where did I feel or think in the same particular way? If I'm so charged in the present right now, it's like what in the past hasn't been resolved to cause this so activation, right? Especially when I'm so pissed off and aggravated. Like, wow, I just snap, right? Like, there's got to be something there in the past. Because if I were to self clean myself and start from a clean slate, then, slight transgressions aren't that big of a deal. It's like, oh. But imagine if I kept going, it's not bad. It's not a big deal. And my people pleaser tendencies to build up that gunk, right? The pipes are clogged. Then there's more chances of me like not being able to breathe, not being able to move in my life. I'm trudging in quicksand because all those unresolved grievances and transgressions and resentments, which really destroys the relationship from the inside out. So when I think back to this, I'm like, oh, wow. Hmm. What about in my past, right? And can I have this tethered to awareness, this consciousness, and see it as this invitation for me to resolve it here in the now, here in
Hmm.
the now. Let's bring it here in the now. It's not about me getting lost in the story, what happened in the past, and being like circulating my story, but more of, oh, I'm tethered in the present moment and viewing from this lens of what is it that I learned here that I can bring forward into this moment now. And that's the gift, right? That's the gift that seems the world keeps presenting me, especially when I notice I'm triggered.
Yeah. Triggers are the greatest gifts, even though they don't feel like it in the time. It's very hard to navigate if we're using our mind to try to figure it out rather than being present to what our body is speaking to and paying attention to the mirror of, oh, it's a really good question to ask ourselves. When have I felt this before? And it's usually and what I call an energetic imprint, whoosh, this flash that takes us out of being able to express ourselves. And by being able to express ourselves, show up in the world as our authentic being.
Yeah, ouch. Just feeling the pain that would sit in my heart, the loss of a relationship, and if it's just a big catalyst event like a divorce or being separated, and this is the moment where I had to move out and live on my own, and my kids are with my ex-partner. And when that anniversary comes around, I'm just reminded of it, right? Like, and that's such a dark period. I'm just speaking for myself of like, wow, that's heavy. And in the past, I would just numb myself. I would seek out distractions or porn or video games with these breakups, right? Unresolved. Like there's no closure. And I'm just reminded of it. And I would just distract myself because I didn't have the tools or the awareness to know how to process it. And I was ashamed of just talking about it. So I didn't really know where to go. besides trying to be tough and strong and ignore it or distract myself with things. You know, I still feel pain. Like if I were to recall the breakups in my life and the breakups that were unresolved, there was
Mm.
really no closure,
Mm.
and even ownership on my part of how I contributed to the relationship.
Right.
And there's times where I have came and owned my stuff, um, and there's other points where I'm like, I'm scared. Like, shall I reopen this? You know,
Right. I think you hit upon a really important part about anniversaries in the first place, and that is something happens between people. They're disconnected. There's a disagreement. There's a what we call a conflict, and it's left hanging. And so I think a lot of people go about their lives being triggered for like all the time, a low level background sense of not really being able to show up completely because of these shocking moments where we don't know how to, what's happened here? Well, I'm so confused as to how I'm perceived or how the world actually is, and how do I not dissociate? How do I begin to associate? How do I live in relationship with people so that I can show up and get my needs met? And I think most of us don't know how to do that. I haven't known how to do that my entire life. It was so confusing to me. So confusing.
especially when I'm in my head and I'm telling stories. And the more time passes, the more it creates a web of a tangled knot. And so when things aren't resolved in a quick time period and it's dragged out, it creates more chances of misinterpretations and misunderstandings.
Yeah.
And there's the parts of me that will run with the story because of how entrenched I am with the story without the clarity of it. And really that's the heartache. That is the pain where relationships break down because of misunderstandings. This idea that we're both enemies, we're projecting enemy images on each other and thinking that we're doing this on purpose and at the expense of my well-being. Though deep down, no, we're all trying to meet our needs the best way that we think we know how. And if we can get to a place where we really hear each other, oh my God, like, oh, wow. Like when you hear my intentions of why I did something, if I didn't share it, then it's easy for your saboteurs to create this story and project an enemy image that I'm undermining you or something, or I'm sabotaging this relationship. But when you can get clear of why I really actually did that, what need am I actually trying to meet by this? Like deep down, like Marshall Rosenberg says this, like every attempt, every action is an attempt to meet an unmet need, right? It's just that that strategy is just being misinterpreted. And when I'm not aware of that strategy, the strategy itself is what causes it because it's typically a maladaptive pattern, right? A saboteur pattern, which is very sly and sneaky and not open and transparent,
Yeah.
mhm, for fear of being rejected.
Yeah. Yep. We have to get our needs met often in very indirect ways instead of just asking. A, because we don't know what our needs are. Um, People think of them as these dependent, selfish ideas that we have that we need something. And so, yeah, a lot of people also think that other people should just know what they need. I remember thinking that when I was married. My husband should just know what I need. Like, why doesn't he just do these things for me? Because it would make me feel a lot better. And why can't he just figure it out? Honestly, and I think if people were really honest with themselves, they do. It's very difficult to speak what we need, like you said, for fear of what we think they're doing, which is rejecting us. But a lot of people don't have the capacity to share. What am I feeling? Good, mad, sad, bad? Like the nuances of what's going on for us and being vulnerable to share in the moment. Like I caught myself when my daughter was visiting. I'm like, okay, there's some discomfort here. And as mothers, often we have this idea that, oh, we should protect ourselves from our children, from our inner experience. But what that ends up happening is they can feel what's going on inside and we say something different. So it looks like dishonesty or something's not aligning. And I know I definitely missed my mom. You know, she's still alive, but it's hard to connect with someone when we believe we need to look or be a certain way and we hide what we're truly feeling. It creates such confusion for people. And then how do we start asking those questions? Often we ask others how they're feeling instead of just being, okay, you know what? This is what I'm noticing right now in my body. And here's a story that's coming up based on that feeling. A lot of people miss the story that they create because they don't want to be honest about what they're feeling. And that's where I think, for me, the enemy images come in. That person's not, they're not attending to how I'm feeling. Even though I don't want to say what I'm feeling, I'm going to create a judgment. Why didn't you take out the garbage? You're so lazy. Versus, man, I
Yeah.
feel so tired and exhausted today. I would sure appreciate it if you took the garbage out for me.
Mm. I want to acknowledge Keely's comment here. Thank you for sharing, Keely. Appreciate the reflection here. Yeah, that's what Summer and I strive to be on these calls, is just sharing what's alive and what's going through. So I appreciate you recognizing that, and speaking allows me um to move that energy, like just
Mm.
owning it. Um, yeah, and as you're speaking to that, like the stories, man, the stories is what creates the tangled knot, and the stories themselves create these additional feelings. And that's where people say, like, feelings aren't facts. Don't follow your feelings, right? It's the feelings that arise from stories that tell that, or distortions, without the clarity and transparency. So there's also this initial feeling that my body knows to let me know what my needs are in that moment. We call that the primary feeling. This is the work of NVC, nonviolent communication, where my feelings are my GPS to let me know where my needs are. But I need to have the awareness to distinguish between the primary emotion, the primary feeling, from the subsequent feelings that are created from stories, from thoughts. They're two different things. So there's a feeling that just shows up. That is something that is in my body's intelligence. Our teacher says something I didn't choose. It's like it's in me. It's life's intelligence. And then there's the feelings that arise from telling the story over and over again. Oh, yeah.
I wonder, like, in terms of story, you mean judgment, right? Maybe we can have an example. Um, oh, here's a good one because we just flew here. We flew here from Edmonton to Victoria, and we're about to get on the plane. And usually we get on the plane together. And all of a sudden, Andre's not there. And I'm like, where did it go? And I mean, we have to board the plane, so I can assume he's maybe going to board the plane, but I really don't know. Um, and so I'm like, in that moment, not knowing where he is, I feel aggravated. I feel like confused. I feel anxious. And then I have these thoughts of, wow, like he just left. He didn't communicate to me. He abandoned me. He's a whatever I want to call him by name, like whatever it is. At the same time, because of my own training, I realized, yeah, that really doesn't meet my need for communication or companionship. But in that moment, based on my own patterns of being left, or what people traditionally call abandonment, which is just my own sense of anxiety that I feel. I ended up getting on the plane on my own, which I never do. I'm confused, I'm anxious, I'm irritated, and as time passes, I'm freaking boiling over in my mind. So I eventually get on the plane and I sit down next to him, and my head is just filled with feelings and also judgments, which I'll pass it over to you, Andre, about what you felt from me in that moment.
Yeah, I mean, looking back now, like there is some shame involved on my side because typically most as couples, you board the plane together, right? You go together.
Yeah.
In that moment, I actually let my fear and paranoia take over, um, because we were flying with Flair Airlines, and they never again. I'm putting this out there, so if you catch us doing Flair Airlines, like really hold me accountable to that. No more Flair Airlines. But I checked the baggage to make sure it fits into this thing, right? I had a past experience where they were very harsh on me, and I didn't want that ruckus. And I already got the bag tags; it fit, right? It just like my carry on, the wheel was kind of sticking out, and I was just paranoid that they would check again and not board me, okay, or get me to pay $130 for a check-in baggage. So I had these thoughts riling in. So I wanted to get into the line as quickly as possible so that they would avert their eyes to me. So again, like I'm feeling shame for sharing this because I'm trying to avoid getting caught. Right? I felt there's a part of me that felt guilty or feel like I was in trouble and I didn't want to get caught. And I'm owning this right now because it's like it seems like I'm cheating the system. But at the same time, it's like if, my needs are just being treated with fairness, and my
Mm.
bags do fit. I just want to be treated as a human being and not be criticized of the little smallest amount of detail of the bag. So I let that run me and went into the plane on my own. Again, I let someone know that hey, they're boarding, but I did not communicate to her that I would be boarding. I didn't. So I own that. I own that. And that made sense to why she was feeling the way she was feeling. Um, and you communicate to me that you need for companionship. That makes sense because if it was the other way around, I would be confused and disjointed. As well, if you on the left and board the plane on your own without telling me, I'll be like, I thought we were going together. So that need for companionship, right? So it makes sense. Um, it's just a little lesson for me to communicate.
Yeah, I mean, I had no idea you were paranoid about your bag. And so I created all these stories about you. And it came back to, you needing fairness because, yeah, they are quite sticklers and they can be quite harsh and rude about your bag not fitting and then threatening to charge you extra money. That's,
Yeah, I mean, the one incident before that created this perception was they they checked my bag at the beginning. They fit everything. They put the tag on it, and then the second time I would go in, they'll ask me to check again, even though I got the bag tag. So I was like, so what's the point of this bag tag? Is it different person by person? You know, like it didn't make any sense to me,
nope.
and so I had that. Anyways, that's between me and Claire.
Yeah, you and Flair Airlines and their bag checking policies. It's policy, so we're not going to treat you like a human being because your wheel is sticking out from your bag. Anyways, yes, that's a very interesting thing, but it definitely created a not a. I didn't get my travel companion with me at that time. So, anyways, that's about how we create stories. And had I not been able to clarify that with Andre, and I think some of the most simplest things, the conflict comes from misunderstanding each other, no matter what it is. And anniversaries call it back up to revisit those things in a new way. Call us to heal those energetic imprints and those judgments. And instead of saying, you know what, I'm angry and you know, I was confused and shocked that you left. Why didn't you tell me how you were boarding the plane? And in a past life, I might have been like, you know, you're so selfish. Why do you board the plane by yourself? And why did you leave me? And like, there's so many different ways of communicating the same thing that has a totally different effect. And this is one of the things that I think Andre and I are both passionate about. We've had disconnections in our families, and it's painful. It's painful to be separated from other people. And it creates a nervous system dysregulation that I think a lot of us are kind of used to. We just accept it. And I for one, don't want to accept it anymore. I want to be connected. I want to understand where people come from. I don't want to use legal things. I want to be connected. I want to be vulnerable. I want to be human. What are you noticing right now? It seems like there's some.
Yeah, I mean, there's a energy of embarrassment is
Oh,
arising in me. Uh, yeah, I just actually didn't feel comfortable sharing that story, but I did.
oh, I should have probably asked you first. It just popped up.
Yeah. Um, it was a feeling of being uh, vulnerable, but then the fear of being judged for it.
Mm.
It's- I'm just seeing why I did that was because part of me is cheap. I didn't want to pay an extra 130 on top of the check baggage rate. And there's shame around like why am I so paranoid about this? Who cares? You know?
Mm.
So it just owning it and admitting it in this space is leaving me feeling like in it right now. Uh, it's fear of being judged. And yeah.
Yeah, maybe I should have asked you if you wanted to use that as an example, and I didn't. I guess my judgment was it was fairly inane example, but or what's the word? Very uh, I don't know what the word is. Innocent example. But maybe that's just from my perspective, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that part of me is like it's my fault. Like this is an example of me not communicating my fears and I created this. Like how can I really fault you for this? And I look at it from an objective point of view, I'm like, right, I didn't communicate. And this was a result of my internal dialogue with myself that caused the situation. And so I'm not trying to make it about me, though I think that's a big piece of why I'm out of alignment at the moment. Yeah. Anyways, don't want this attention on me right now because I don't know where I'm going with this.
Thank
Talking in
you.
loops.
Well, let's bring it back then. We were talking about anniversaries, how we can make up stories, the things that go on in our mind, and tracking it back to truth so we can stay connected. And so there's a lot of stories, beliefs that we have, usually about ourselves, that we make up from the primary emotion that we experience in any given moment, that if we expressed in the moment would allow us to have this authentic dialogue. But instead of realizing what our primary emotion is, we go into judgment. We go into fear. We go into whatever we go into, which then creates a bigger mess than had we just been able to express what the primary emotion was. And we are, as a culture, really discouraged from doing that. And then it gets messier and messier as the judgments pile up. And it gets more and more confusing, especially as we are married with that person and they are layered on top of each other without being caught. And I think, like you said in one of the past ones, all of those thoughts and judgments get into this tangled ball, and you have to start slowly untangling them.
Yeah, it gets lost. The story changes over time. It gets really messy to the point of like it doesn't make any sense anymore. It's just two people that are hurt and just want to be heard, whether it makes sense or not. And it's very difficult in a relationship because each person personalizes it, just like right now I'm personalizing it. It's like this piece of like, oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, it must be my fault. Can be so destructive. Destructive. Yeah. Because then one person can easily personalize it and then it creates the happy life idea.
Yeah, I like how you're saying that. It's the personalization. It's like a lot of people, we're all very narcissistic. We always think someone does something because of us. And it's really about their own internal GPS, their own judgments of self or what they need to do to protect themselves, whatever it is that causes their behavior that then we take
Yeah.
as personal.
Well, it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's ownership for me. It's like if I can take ownership of this co-creating experience, then we got both people rowing the boat here. It's not one-sided. It's not like I'm the perpetrator 100% of the time, you know? Um, and I gotta say, like I'm apprehensive in sharing things that where you were activated or you were triggered, and then I had to kind of respond or react to that. Just there's some weird energy here for me. I'm noticing is perhaps there's a like I'm afraid to speak or shine a light on your triggers and activations. Perhaps there's a oh I'm afraid I might make you angry. Create a conflict here. Um, wait a minute. Whereabouts this dialogue is it my fault? It's like why I'm saying that is that there's a part of me that's very agreeable in conflict. That I don't know. You correct me if I'm wrong. It's easy for me to own my part. I might not do it immediately, but I come back to it, right? And if I keep doing that, and that's not being reciprocated by my beloved, then it can seem like it's always my problem. It's always, and I've created the dynamic. I've created the dynamic where I'm the perpetrator because I'm not holding my partner, my beloved, accountable either. But what does that mean, right? What does that mean, anyways? But it's about having this willing conversation where both people can own their part of this co-creating experience. It creates safety for me. That I'm like, oh my God, it's actually not on me like all the time, you know? And the scenario of the airplane, I'm like looking back, I'm like, I guess it is my fault. If you look at it, like, well, I created the action. I did it. Okay, great. This is what I did. I didn't communicate. So of course there's like, oh, freak. Oh. And that's the only thing I can focus on. Like it's as if my mind has amnesia of the times where I'd say you were the catalyst, right? I can't remember. It's like blank.
Well, I mean,
So
I
I'm
can
just
take
I'm
them.
just naming it.
Right.
Yeah. Um.
I mean, part of me too, because I was so activated. I sat almost on the entire plane ride sleeping, and I would have engaged with you differently. And I had to kind of let myself sit in what I was experiencing. And I realized an anniversary. Okay, yeah, this is my abandonment mood. I'm moving through this and noticing my distortions as I'm working through that, as I'm sitting next to you on the plane. I'm like, oh, yeah, this is that feeling and how angry I get when I feel alone and not being able to be connected to people, which goes back to, again, uh, being a young baby. And, oh, lost you there for a sec. So if I were to judge myself, it would have been better to have come and said, hey, why did you board the plane by yourself? Like, where'd you go? In a playful way. I I didn't do that. I sat down angry, and I think you put up your, hey, we made it, and I was like, I don't want to touch your hand, like I'm not, and I put my head down and went to sleep because there was a degree of caustic rage that I had to process, and took out my journal at some point. So I think I could have done that better, but I was triggered, and so I didn't. Yeah.
No. Mm.
But again, there's an anniversary for me. That's my pattern, right? The anxious pattern, like, oh my gosh, like, oh, where'd they go? And I, at the moment, I could see it and I could recognize it. At the same time, I was like, I don't get why he did that. Like, why would he do that? Like, like, I don't understand what's going on here. Mm.
Yeah. See, that's the thing, right? Where for me, like I know I've just revealed like I mean, it's still a work in progress of bringing feedback to you, um, and to discuss to discuss like these transgressions and how do we relate with each other in a better way. And I'm noticing if I were to bring it up when it's still fresh, it's it's not the right time because the wound is still fresh, the trigger is still fresh, and I find the better time is to bring it up later when we're both more regulated, we're in that playful space, and it's brought up in a playful way. Though the key part is remembering to bring it up, and sometimes the challenge is remembering what happened, the observation, without mixing in the judgments. Because it gets tricky when more time passes, amnesia comes in. We forget what exactly happened. And it can, I'm just saying.
Well, no,
And that can cause people to argue on what exactly happened and then start spiraling back down, right? And so,
but I think that's the point, is it doesn't matter what happened. The exact happened or what happened or didn't happen doesn't matter. It's how we felt about it. It's what we felt in the moment that's really the importance. Because how we feel then allows us to track that back to why we're feeling it in the first place. Because it's not actually the thing that's happening right now that's the issue. If we're triggered, it is something that's hooking us to something in the past. So all we need to be able to track that it is our feeling. If we go into our head of what exactly happened, it's actually misleading us because it isn't actually about what happened right now. It's about what happened in the past that's being recalled through this moment. So we don't even need to actually have an observation verbally about what happened. All we need to do is track the feeling in our body
Yeah,
to be able.
what brings it to completion for me is behaviors. Like, how do we approach this the next time this would happen? That's what I'm referring to, is how do we improve the ways of relating with one another that is more respectful, or being aware of, oh, shoot, this unconscious, like now I have a lesson is that I'm going to communicate to you before I do this thing. And that's a behavioral change that's implemented. And now I get to play out the software. That puts me at ease when my beloved, you, we can get on the same page of how we relate with each other, right? It's not assuming, it's clear, there's no guesswork, and creating space for that dialogue to happen while revisiting what has happened in the past to bring it back now to, yeah, avoid getting stuck in the story of things, but revisiting more of the behaviors, if you know what I mean. It's like, if I know how to speak your language, amazing. And then for you to speak my language too. It's like speaking each other's love language, you know, if that makes sense.
It is. I'm getting a little bit lost because part of me in relationship, where part of it is trust, right? And I think if we go into behavioral or cognitive behavioral and it's in our head versus the embodiment, because if I understand how you feel and why you did that, I'm go, oh, and I have a relaxation about that. Or you hear how I felt because of your behavior, like, oh, I don't want to have her feel that way. And so I believe people automatically want to serve each other. And so we don't have to think our way out of it. It's just, oh, if I energetically have an understanding of this person, there's knowledge that comes through about what I'm going to do differently.
Yeah,
And
yes.
yes,
So,
yes.
yeah, so I think there's a misunderstanding there.
Oh,
Um, so I get the connection to the feelings needs helps create capacity for me to have empathy, genuine empathy, not, oh, oh, I hear what you're saying. I'm going to repeat back what exactly you said. When I can really connect to why you're doing that to meet a need, I'm like, oh, right, I got it. Then that creates capacity and spaciousness to come up with a strategy or behavior to avoid that from happening again, for example. Does that make sense? Like, there's certain ways of relating. Like, for example, look at that. Hey, make sure, like, you remember the one time where um, we went to the bathroom together, or we were at Commonwealth, the gym, and we went upstairs and went to the bathroom. I went off and ran on the track. I didn't communicate to you that I was doing that. You came out and you assumed that I was waiting for you, and you waited there for however long. You came and met me at the track, and you were angry at me. I'm like, oh shit, whoops, I didn't communicate. So it's
similar.
like, yeah, so that's a, oh, okay, got it. Whoops. So I totally agree with you in terms of connecting with feelings and needs. Now that's simple. It's not getting to the story because I'm getting ahead of myself. It's getting to that place of, oh, you did that because of this. It's actually hearing each other. It's a, oh, got it. And when I can hear your humanity behind that, now what? Right? Is there, what's the learning behind this? You know, that's what I'm asking, is what's the learning? behind this?
Well, I mean, I could ask you that. What was the learning for you? And I think you said, oh, I realized the reason why I did that was out of fear that there wasn't fairness in this situation with Flair Airlines, for example. Or I can learn, oh, here's this wound again. What I could have done better was, okay, yeah, here it is. Here's my wound again. I can just ask him, hey, why why didn't you communicate you were going to the track? Or why didn't you communicate you were boarding the plane? Interesting. And so then it's up to you to go, interesting pattern I'm observing here. Oh, like, oh. So then I guess I leave it up to you to process, I guess, a pattern that you've discovered and why it is that you behave that way, or why you just don't, oh, I didn't communicate. I just went off. And there's an assumption that I knew where you would be or how that would work. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know for me, if I explore my behavior of why I sat down next to you and didn't really acknowledge you and was in my head the way that I was, and how can I clean that self and process what that was for me so that I can behave in a kinder, more direct manner myself. Because if I were to judge myself, I'd say there's kind of a retributionary, definitely not kind of energy that would emanate from me to sit there and go, oh, like, and so,
Yeah, I mean, there's so many ways to go about this, and I hear where you're coming from. Like, if I were to just like distill it down, it's more the willingness for both of us to learn from the experience,
yeah,
right? And we learn and adapt strategies in our own way. It sounds like, for you, if and please correct me, it's like now knowing, okay, if Andre takes off, like, or he's not here, then rather than being aggravated, and it's okay to be aggravated, I would be, to then do that self-regulation with myself and then come to Andre from a more regulated state and be more curious of, hey, what happened? Therefore, I'm like, oh, right, I can learn from this and not be shamed or create a quarrel that could happen. So it's definitely see it from that perspective of coming to the situation in a more regulated and curious state. And then the other piece is, for me, I think you're chatting, and this is my rational mind. Like you're chatting on the preemptive piece of, okay, bringing this to the table. I'm actually talking about the after effect of what to take with me. Yeah, if that makes
mm.
sense.
Nope, I'm not clear on that. I
Okay,
know,
so let's say you ask me, oh, so why did you not communicate to me when you left? Maybe I'm not sure if it's like that because that could be feel like integrating depending on how it's laid out. Or I could be like, oh, I just assumed that we're going to meet on the track. I hear what you're saying. Like you would have liked to know that I let you know that I was going to go on the track. Then I log that as a learning lesson after the fact. After having that dialogue, I'm like, okay, log it. The next time I'm going to communicate to you. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Or not?
It
I
seems
sense some confusion
common
right now.
sense to me. It seems common sense, so I'm not sure why you think I don't understand. Because I know what you said. Okay, you brought empathy to the situation. I had to process my own trigger. So by the end of the plane ride, I've processed my trigger, and I did ask you. I'm like, hey, like, why did you get on the plane without me? Like, I'm curious, right? I went to that more playful, kind place, and I don't know how you responded to that. And you're like, oh yeah. Or you also explained what your thought process was so that I could understand. Um, and it had actually, maybe I could ask you that. Like, had it occurred to you? Not until I asked, or
It occurred to me because I felt your energy on the plane, so I automatically assumed that you were upset with me because we came on the plane separately.
okay, so yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, and it's just that in the moment I'm like, I don't think this is the right time to have that conversation. It wouldn't,
No, and
So
yeah, and
I waited until you felt more regulated, and you extended an olive branch by opening up the communication, which to me meant, okay, let's chat, let's get clear.
yeah, and looking back, and be like, ah, he must have just been. Obviously, he must have been on the plane. I don't know why. Well, no big deal. But there's still remnants, anniversaries of you know being left, not feeling connected to someone and wanting that connection and feeling that anxiety. It brought that back up in me again, which means that I have not cleared that energy in myself completely. That's what it means. That's what it means for me. My ownership of my way of behaving in that experience.
Yeah. So really, it can be challenging for me, challenging to communicate consciously when I'm triggered, of course, but my beloved is triggered. Okay, because if it involves me, it's so easy for a part of me to personalize it. So that's a work in progress, is to be able to just be like that. Okay, hear what you're feeling, hear what you're needing. It's actually to hold space for the reactivity. So let's say if you got on the plane, right? And I was like, hey, we made it. And then you're like, "No, nothing. I was kind of left hanging, right? Like, oh, oops. So so what if I probed you, babe? Like, what if I inquired, oh, like, you upset with me, right? You could have went blah, right? Or been like, nope, let's not talk right now. Okay, let's assume that you went blah. That would have created more challenge in me to be present in the moment and hold that and be like, okay, got it, got it. That's the challenge. The easy difficulty, making it easier, is waiting for you to get regulated. And then, okay, let's get back. Right. And thank you. Thank you. Like, if we can get there for the both of us, get to a place of like, hey, I'm triggered right now with Summer. How can I get regulated where if I want to bring this up, I can bring this up with you in a softer, nicer way, rather than being like, "Bah!" and then having you hold that, is what I'm saying, right? So if there's a willingness for the both of us to do that, we can. It just makes things easier and smoother. Makes
Well, this is
things.
where, yeah, and I noticed Chris has a great thing there, maybe men and women difference, but it is about, it doesn't matter who you're in relationship with, it's how do we know that they process triggers? Do do they need to go out be by themselves? Do they need to go work out? Without ourselves taking that on and thinking they're doing something against us when actually they're just trying to get back to a space of their own regulation. And so this is something people learn about themselves in relationship as they go along sometimes, or they just keep personalizing it and it creates what they call toxic relationships. But what did Chris say exactly?
Yeah, I think this may be a man woman difference. Asking the question sounds integrating when coming from that angry Andrew. I agree. It's not as spontaneous or direct about what you needed, Summer, and how you were feeling. It's not as honest or direct about what you needed, Summer, or how you were feeling. Yeah, if you were asking, why did you communicate or why did you leave, right? It's easy to receive that as a as an attack. Also, men tend to problem solve and feel after. Women, in my experience, problem, feel, solve all at the same time. The message part was cut off. So he said, women in my experience don't feel solved all at the same time. So yeah. So I think right now what I'm noticing in my system is a bit self-conscious, um, insecure, and confused. That's what we're trying to get at. Um, especially
Probably
for those that are watching, right? Those that are
yeah,
watching what's going on here. And I'm even confused myself where I'm going with this. Because man, like I'm just giving myself grace that this just happened yesterday too, right? So and just noticing my part in preferring that you're regulated for us to have a conversation for my fear of making it worse. Um, and my tendency to avoid conflict and wanting to bring up feedback in the right way. I mean, there's no right or wrong. Like it's more of like how do I say it in a compassionate way where it can be both received and we're updating our software along the way in the ways we relate with each other. And hey, I'm saying it's not like we're at each other's throat all the time, right? Like
Well,
no,
no, this is yeah, and Chris is right. Yeah, it is a bit muddled. I would judge this live to be.
yeah,
It's like, where
it's
are we
muddled,
going with
very
that?
confusing. Shoot. Oh man.
The point is just there's often misunderstandings, and maybe we'll talk about that and how we get through those in with greater ease and grace as a human being, as Chris so gently has said. Yeah, we're human. Okay, what are we getting at here exactly? What is the process of working through a triggering communication? What does Chris say? As a man, I need to come back after and figure out what the lesson is so I can improve. I need it clear, direct, and to the point. Otherwise, the vagueness leaves me feeling guilty and ashamed. Yeah. Clear
I
and
agree.
specific.
I agree. And so maybe one thing, like what I'm hearing from this is that men or women are different, period, like and maybe it's also gender neutral of every person is different. Every person is different. And it's about getting clear on what works for me. Like me being clear with you and what works for me. It's like the love language, right? And it's true. Like I do analyze it afterwards and figure out, okay, how do I update my software, right? And I want to communicate that to you so that you know how I'm wired in a way, my blueprint, my human design. And I want to know your human design, your blueprint as well, how you prefer to communicate. So it's like we get to meet each other where we're at. Is what I'm hoping all this muddleness comes to is the desire to get to know each other in that deep, intimate way and to be able to speak each other in that love language so that's received versus I want you to speak. How am I going to word this?
And throw in
It's
doses of
a
humor.
yeah. Versus it being one way is what I'm trying to say. Versus it being one way, right? It's like I want you to take care of me, right? But then it's not a two-way street. It's like what okay, what about me and how I'm wired or how what works for me? So both channels got to be open. It's like man, let's treat each other with compassion and equality and holiness, right? Because I have a tendency to be a martyr, is what I'm saying. I have a tendency,
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
okay? That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying to myself. It's like that's what I wish for. Because if I don't speak that out, then it's gonna be like, oh my God, why is it always my fault? Why am I always the one having to change? Yeah,
And
I'm
you
just
know what?
naming it.
As Chris is speaking, I think more men these days in this, as I see patterns emerging, that more men are feeling um, that way. If I were to see in the balance of the relationships and the people that we've been speaking to, um, is that the patriarchy as it has been, there's a lot of finger pointing and there's not an equity in how feminism has perhaps turned into a reverse patriarchy only from women, as how I might put that, and expecting men to, oh yes, we've been terrible to women. Oh my gosh, we're terrible. And for women to say, yes, you always have been. And there's that blame and shame element without coming to the table of something that's true for all of us in our nervous systems.
Yeah.
If a man is in the forest by himself, is he still wrong? What does that mean? I don't understand that question. What?
Yeah, can you clarify, Chris?
Yeah, Chris,
Yeah.
that's not clear. That's very vague, I think. I think that's
Thanks
what
for
you
the
said.
humor.
Vagueness leaves me feeling, it doesn't leave me feeling guilty and shame, but it makes me feel confused for sure. Anyways.
Yeah, this was an interesting conversation. So,
Okay. I'm feeling the need to relax and perhaps get outside and go see the ocean, which is really close by. Yeah, it's hilarious, isn't it, Chris?
yeah. So yeah, till next time. Thanks for chiming in. Thanks for witnessing us in all our ups, downs, lefts and rights, and tangled knots that we may have created. Um, and, okay. And,
It's a man
yeah,
watching. Oh,
a
okay.
resource. Love for you guys to join the conversation as well. In the chat, we're live on YouTube, live on Facebook, Get Resource Facebook group, live every Friday at 12 p.m. Mountain. So yeah,
Bye,
it wraps up
everybody.
this month. Yeah. Ciao.